Welcome, my lovely lilies, to the Nation Horror Archives. Please bring your dream catchers along, and let me be your beacon of light in this valley of horror, and follow me as we delve into these tales that will haunt your very soul. Crazy Redneck Driver. This incident happened a few years ago, but I think about it every time I drive. I was about 19 and in my second year of college. I was running a little behind for a literature test and was in a hurry to leave the house. Now I live only 10 minutes from the college, so it wasn't that big of a deal. At the end of my road is a 4-lane intersection. Nothing real dangerous, but you do need to pay attention to what you are doing. I get to the intersection and there's no one coming, so I pull out. Now imagine my surprise when a red pickup truck flies past me, pulls in front of me, and stops suddenly. Not just brakes, but stops in the road and begins to get out of his truck yelling all sorts of profanity at me, while holding something I could not make out in his hand. This has never happened to me before, so I have no idea what to do at this point. I punch the accelerator and I take off in the other lane. The red truck is behind me, following as close as he can. Then he switches lanes, and he is next to me, weaving like he's going to crash into me. I brake, then he brakes for me to catch up to him. This happens over and over until I slide into the college parking lot. I leave my car on, and I run into the security office, shaking and crying uncontrollably. It took over an hour for me to calm down and tell my dad and the police officers what happened. My dad took me home, trying to comfort me with his soft words, trying to explain that it was just another crazy driver. Well, later that day, my mom decided to take me out shopping to make me feel better. And yes, my mom was driving. While on my way, I look out the window, and I see the crazy red truck guy next to us, staring at me. I begin freaking out and crying hysterically, pointing at him. My mom yelled at me to write down his license plate number as he drives past us. We drove home immediately and called the police officer back and told him about what just happened. About 30 minutes later, he came to the house and began talking to us about the situation and what he had found out from the license plate number. The crazy red truck guy had a drug problem and had been involved in 2 other cases just like mine. Now the only difference was the 2 other girls went missing and have never been found. The officer tries to reassure me that I was safe, that I was a smart girl by driving to the security station at college. He went on talking, but my mind raced as he talked. What might have happened to me? What could have happened to me? I started thinking, am I really safe? I mean, he is still out there. Is he following me? Waiting to get me like those other girls? But I can't think that way anymore. He can't be following me. Right? He can't be. So, crazy redneck red truck guy, let's not meet ever. Ever again. Coming from the other side of the globe to save me. I am a 25-year-old female and have been living with my boyfriend for the last 6 years. This was about 4 years ago. I was online a lot, and still am. I meet a lot of cool people. Many have had rough backstories, but I always offered a listening ear and tried to support them. I'm going to mention that I have autism, and I can be pretty naive, and sometimes I don't recognize certain bad situations right away. I met a 24-year-old guy from Australia, I'm from Europe, who had just broken up with his girlfriend that he said was emotionally unstable, and it ended with her wanting to kill herself and him not being able to handle it anymore. I talked to him a lot about it. I tried to help him cope with the situation. We started to game together online, and I started to think of him as a friend. But after a while, I started to notice he kinda acted like I was his girlfriend. I glanced over it, because he knew I had a boyfriend, and it might have just been kindness and I mistook it. I'm famous for being oblivious to that kind of stuff. He started to tell me that I should break up with my boyfriend, going on long tangents and writing me emails how my boyfriend was like his ex-girlfriend, that he abused me mentally and physically, that he was raping me, and that he was going to kill me one day, which was all completely absurd. I kept explaining that to him. After a while, it was obvious that he indeed thought of me as his new girlfriend. He made it clear we were going to spend the rest of our lives together, and that he would make sure of it. He was convinced that me telling him to stop and leave me alone was all orchestrated by my boyfriend, and I was actually being held hostage. Luckily, he didn't know my full name, or where I lived, or so I thought. I started getting messages from random accounts with pictures of people bloodied up, saying this is going to happen, all with his name on the pages itself. This went on for a while. I begged him to stop, but he kept pushing. I had blocked him, but he kept making new accounts to get in contact with me. I decided just to delete my account on that site altogether and not be there anymore, and I hoped it would go away. But then I suddenly started getting messages on Facebook. I never told him my full name, and even then, I made sure my Facebook is extremely private, with a family nickname, and I only had other family members on there, because most lived far away. My boyfriend didn't even have a Facebook account, and like I said before, I kept my full name and location to myself. He made about 150 pages and profiles, completely directed to me, with pictures of people killing themselves, telling me he was going to kill himself, complete with overlays and banners of "This is your fault." It seemed like he had made it his full-time day job to send me messages on different platforms. He even found stuff like my YouTube account and followed me around there. Eventually, he started sending receipts of his school books that he had sold of his current school year, and later 1 plane ticket to the airport where I actually lived close to, and 2 back to Australia. He kept sending me proof, like of him moving out of his apartment and putting his stuff in storage. He told me he was coming to save me from my boyfriend, who had kept me hostage, and that he was going to kill him and take me back to Australia, so I could be saved. He had gotten rid of all ties he had, quit school, quit his job, so we could have a blank slate, telling me we would have to live under the radar for a while. All the while he kept sending me pictures as proof of doing these things, because he loved me and wanted to show it. By now I had blocked every Facebook account with his unfortunately extremely common name, and basically deleted every other online account I had. Even though a lot were under different names, he found me everywhere. Eventually the day came where he was taking pictures at the airport, which he was posting on my Facebook wall, and him in the plane with logos I immediately recognized as my country's official airline. He began talking about the actual house I lived in, which was kind of a strange place to live. I lived on an industrial area in a maintenance apartment inside a huge empty building with only one other office. I was on the lease as a maintenance person. That was purely for legal reason, because the owner thought he could make some money on the side. The whole building was open to me, and there weren't any people living remotely nearby. He definitely couldn't have known I lived there. He started messaging me about how perfect that whole setup was for his plans. My boyfriend was aware of everything that had happened by then, and thought it was best if maybe we'd sought out the help of the police to give us some advice. But of course they couldn't do anything, and suggested that if we were scared, we better just go somewhere else. And we decided to go stay at my parents'. We went back the next day, since we both had school and work, but saw the police cars in front of the building. The owner informed us that someone had broken in. This person had tried to go into the office next to our apartment, and they had an alarm system that went off and alerted the cops. At that point I wanted to know what was going on, and if he had tried to break in, since that was my first guess. It wasn't hard contacting him since he already sent me multiple messages again on Facebook from several different accounts. My boyfriend contacted him, and the guy agreed to have a webcam and chat. And when he turned his cam on, I immediately recognized a hallmark of our city from the window behind him. I silently freaked out, not letting it be known I was present. My boyfriend then spent more than 7 hours talking to him. The guy was furious and still certain my boyfriend was going to kill me, with nothing that could change his mind. After more than 7 hours with my normally monk-calm boyfriend getting pretty annoyed at this point because of the most stupid reasoning, the guy copy-pasted our whole chat conversation and spun them in crazy ways, basically saying that if I was so adamant on staying with him, I deserved what my boyfriend was going to do to me, and wouldn't mourn me, because I had ruined his, my own, our kids, and our life together. I only heard from him one more time after that. A short video of him being in the hospital saying he had tried to kill himself, and it was all my fault. And I was going to bring darkness over the earth instead of light, like you promised. He says stuff like that often, and other weird spiritual promises he said I made. I got scared again for a while, but it got silent after that. Even though it was years ago, I'm still afraid the guy isn't over me and will come after me. But as far as I know, his parents had him locked in a nursing home. I got this info a year later, when his older brother finally responded to all my Facebook messages, me trying to tell him to please speak to his brother, because he was not okay. Stupid Facebook spam folder. So, Mr. Crazy Guy, please, let's not ever, ever meet again.